Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be discussing the Sukoon and Qalqalah. This is specifically section 2. In section 2, we're covering diacritical marks. And today we're going to be covering the diacritical mark called the Sukoon. This is lesson 7. And we're also going to be covering a tajweed lesson or a tajweed concept called Qalqalah. The reason I decided to combine the two is because they're very closely related, and without knowing the Sukoon, you will not know the Qalqalah. And this is the right time to learn this tajweed concept called Qalqalah as well. Inshallah, I'll probably do extra videos on all the tajweed lessons that are going to follow, but today Qalqalah is the right time to be learned with Sukoon, inshallah. So let's get started. On the agenda today, we're going to do a quick review of the previous lesson. As usual, I'm going to ask you to do the warm-ups, and we will go over letter collections. Just like in the previous videos, we've been memorizing letter collections. Today we're going to add a letter collection, the Qalqalah letters, to the letter collections, and we'll start memorizing those as well. Next is going to be the meat of the lesson today, which is the Sukoon and the Qalqalah, and what that means, so that'll follow. And finally, I will assign you some exercises. So that is our agenda for today. Let's get started. Okay, a quick review of the previous lesson. We learned in the previous lesson about what we called the mud diacritic. Specifically, whenever a hamza comes after a mud letter, and what were the 3 mud letters? We learned that in the previous lesson, which was section 2, lesson 3, and lesson 4. There are 3 mud letters, which is whenever a madmuma letter or a letter with a dhamma on it is followed by a waw, either a waw sukun or a waw saghira, or a maksura letter or letter with a kasra below it is followed by a ya or a ya saghira, and a maftuha letter which is followed by an alif or an alif saghira. Whenever these 3 huruful mad are present, but the letter immediately following them is a hamza, whenever a hamza comes after a mud letter, that mud letter should be extended to 4 counts. And we learned about the 3 mud letters in section 2, lesson 3 and 4. If you want, you can go back to watch section 2, lesson 3 and 4. And this type of mud is denoted by a tilde-looking diacritic. And this is the tilde-looking diacritic that it's denoted by in the Quran. This is slightly bolder and larger. I zoomed in for your ease. This is what the mud looks like. So let's get into some of the examples, some sample words that we discussed for mud. I will quickly spell these out and pronounce these out. I won't go into details. If you want, you can watch the previous lesson, which is section 2, lesson 6. So, mim, fatha, alif, mad, ma. Hamza, fatha, tan, an, ma'an. Next we have ya, fatha, ya. Ra, fatha, ra. Ya, ra. Ha, dhamma, waw, mad, hu. Yarahu. Hamza, fatha, a. Yarahu, a. Ha, fatha, ha. Yarahu, aha. Dal, dhamma, tan, dun. Yarahu, ahadun. Next we have waw, fatha, wa. Jim, kasra, ya, mad, ji. Waji. Hamza, fatha, a. Waji'a. So we're extended anytime this mud occurs, this mud diacritic occurs, because of the hamza immediately following, we're extending it to 4 counts. Next we have sheen, fatha, sheen, fatha, alif, mad, sha. Hamza, fatha, a. Sha'a. Next we have waw, fatha, wa. Tha, fatha, alif, sukun, tha. Wa, tha. Qaf, fatha, qa. وثاق ها ضمة واو مد هو وثاقه همزة فتحة أ وثاقه أ حا فتحة ح وثاقه أح دال ضمة دن وثاقه أحد. If you want, I'm going a little bit fast because this is just a review of the previous lesson. You can watch the previous lesson, and including the exercise videos, I've created a whole bunch of exercise videos. I'm going to say 3 at least for that particular lesson. You can watch the section video or the lesson video along with the exercise video. I'll give you all the details. I just wanted to give you this as a quick review. Next we have ha fatha ha, noon kasra ya mad ni, hani, hamza fatha tan an, hani an. Now this method of writing fathatan, the second fatha is denoted by a tiny meme. We will cover when we cover ahkam an-nun as-sakina wa tanween, but just know this fatha and a meme on top of it, this is just another method of writing fathatan. The reason why the fatha is changed into a meme, we will cover that later inshallah. Alright, the warm-ups. Go ahead, watch the warm-ups video. The warm-ups video are going to warm up your nose, throat, chest, mouth, etc. Don't skip those, they're important. And specifically the mud diacritic, you will, the saying the warm-up will help you do that one. So go ahead, watch the warm-ups video, I'll include a link. Don't skip those are important. On to letter collections. We're going to be adding one more collection of letters today, which is the Qalqalah letters. We have been trying to memorize, or we have been included to memorize the throat letters, the lip letters, the tafkhim letters, the idgham letters, the mad letters, and today we're going to add one more, which are called the Qalqalah letters. So let's get started and see if we remember what those are. What are the throat letters? The throat letters are 6, and they are Hamza ha, Ain ha, Ghain kha. One more time, Hamza ha, Ain ha, Ghain kha. And we should memorize them in that specific order. Just remember these in that specific order. It's important. When we go into details of the makharij al-huruf, I gave you some introduction of how to pronounce all the letters in section 1. I believe it's lesson 2 through lesson 6, all of how English speakers can attempt to pronounce all the letters. I gave you some articulation points and how letters are articulated, but I didn't go into the very, very detailed, like very specifically where a letter comes from, etc. Just remember the throat letters are 6, Hamza ha, Ain ha, Ghain kha, and they should be memorized in this order. Next we have the lip letters. The lip letters are 4, which is fa, waw, ba, and mim. Those are the 4 lip letters. Next we have the letters of tafkhim, or the letters of heaviness. We haven't gone into details of what tafkhim and tarqiq is just yet. We will cover that in a later video. But there are 7 letters, which are sad, dad, ta, wa, ghain, kha, and qaf. Those are the 7 letters of tafkhim. Memorize those. And another letter collection that we should be memorizing is the idgham letters. And the idgham letters we can remember by the mnemonic or the word yarmalun. Yarmalun, which is ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, noon. Yarmalun. Those are the idgham letters. Ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, noon. Yarmalun. We will go into the details of idgham and idgham bi ghunna, idgham bi ghayr ghunna, etc. when we cover ahkam an-nun as-sakina wa tanween in a later video. But just remember these in this specific order. Yarmalun. Ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, nun are idgham letters. What are the mud letters? There are 3 mud letters. We covered that in section 2, lesson 3 and 4. Are alif, waw, and ya. Those are the 3 mud letters. Today we're going to add another letter collection that you should be memorizing and you should know by heart, which are the Qalqalah letters. And you can remember this one by a mnemonic/word, and the word is qutub jad. Qutub jad. One more time. Qutub jad. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. Qutub jad. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. Qutub jad. Qutub jad. So just remember these 5 letters of Qalqalah. Now, what Qalqalah means, we will cover today. We're about to get into that, inshallah. So let's get started. Okay. On to today's lesson. The Sukoon. What is a Sukoon? A Sukoon is this on the right hand side. I had to zoom in. I couldn't find a good example of the Sukoon. So it's kind of zoomed in, so it's kind of pixelated. But it looks like a small daal on top of a letter. If you remember the letter daal, it looks like that, but when it's written on top of a letter, this is what a sukoon looks like. You will see a whole bunch of sukoons all throughout the Quran. You open any page in the Quran, it's going to have a bunch, or even any line on the Quran, it's going to have a bunch of sukoons on it. The sukoon, or the word sukoon specifically, means rest. And this is what it looks like. It looks like a small daal on top of a letter. And whenever a letter has a sukoon on it, whether it's a ba or a ta or anything, we call the letter a sakin or a sakina sometimes. The letter with a sukoon is called either a sakin or sakina, just like a letter with a fatha on it is called maftuha, letter with a dhamma on it is called madmuma, letter with a kasra below it is called a maksura. When a letter has a sukoon on it, we either call it sakin or sakina, depending on the context. A sukoon denotes the end of a syllable. So we will go into a quick, overview of what it, how you can think of a sukoon or a letter being at rest in just a second. But in Arabic, whenever you see a sukoon, just remember it's the end of a syllable. So if you remember in a previous lesson, we discussed how to spell things out or do hijja in Arabic. We said we make syllables by combining vowels and consonants, right? And basically, the sukoon denotes the end of a syllable. Meaning, whenever you see a sukoon, when you're spelling things out, that's when you're supposed to pronounce out the syllable. That's when you know that this is a syllable. This denotes the end of a syllable. Okay? Every letter has a sound that you move, meaning that the sukoon, when it comes to what the sukoon means, every letter has a name and every letter has a sound, right? We have a letter called the letter B in English. I'll give you an example. The letter B, the name is B, right? The name of the letter is B, but its sound is B. That's its sound, B. We move it by adding different vowels. If it's an I, we say B. If it's U, we say B. If it's an E, we say B. So, etc. We move it by up, down, left, right, etc. We move it different directions by adding vowels. But every letter has a sound that you move by adding a vowel. Similarly in Arabic, every letter has a name. We have the letter Ba, we have the letter Ta, we have the letter Tha. But each letter also has a sound, right? The letter Ba, its sound is B. The letter Ta, its sound is Th. The letter Tha, its sound is Th. If you want, you can go back to section 1 and I go into a lot of detail on how to sound out each and every letter, its name, its sound, etc. All of it is in that section. You can refer back to that section. But since every letter has a sound, in Arabic you move that sound with harakat, meaning that you add a fatha. You can think of the fatha as moving the sound up. So ba fatha ba, it's moving it up. You can think of the mak kasra when ba maksura or ba kasra below it. Ba kasra bi, so you're lowering the sound. You move it downward by adding kasra. Ba kasra bi. Or when you ba dhamma, you move it sideways by adding the dhamma. Ba dhamma bu. Right? That's also in section 2, the diacritical marks. It's the tanween, I'm sorry, not the tanween, the harakat lesson. Dhamma fatha kasra. You can also refer back to section 2, lesson 1, I think that is. Section 2, lesson 1, in which I go into detail of dhamma fatha kasra. But because every letter has a sound that you move with either a dhamma, fatha, or kasra, the dhamma, fatha, or kasra are also sometimes called harakat. But what if you don't want to move the sound? What if a letter has a sukoon on it? Meaning the letter is at rest. Then you combine it with a previous letter that has a movement / short vowel on it. So if a letter is at rest, or if a letter has a sukoon on it, you don't move it. You just sound out its sound, but you combine it with a previous letter with a movement / short vowel on that letter. We'll go into detail on how to sound out the sukoon in just a second. We'll go into a lot of detail of with a lot of examples and exercise videos, but I just wanted you to know each letter has a sound, each letter has a name. When the sound is moving, you move it with the harakat. But when the sound is not moving, when the sound is at rest, that's when you see the sukoon on top of that letter. And when the sukoon is on that letter, you combine it with a previous movement letter to sound out the syllable. So, similarly, if you have a letter that has a sukoon on it, you don't move the sound, you keep it at rest. It's the opposite of the harakat. In the harakat, you move them up. Think of them moving up by fatha, moving down by kasra, moving sideways by the dhamma. But when a sukoon is on it, you keep it at rest. We will cover details related to noon sakin in a later video. We'll cover the details later. But I just want you to think of whenever you see a sukoon, the letter is at rest. The letter is not moving. When you see fatha, dhamma, kasra, the letter is moving up, down, sideways. Think of it that way. Okay, a comparison in English. When a consonant occurs, so remember, if you want, I don't remember which video it was, but we got into a little bit of details of how to spell things out in Arabic, but I just wanted to give you a quick comparison in English. Whenever a consonant occurs at the end of a syllable, you can think of it, the consonant, as being at rest. So remember, we talked about how language is made. What is the construct? The construction of a language is consonants and vowels combine to make syllables, syllables combine to make words, words combine to make sentences, sentences combine to make meaning, and meaning is language, right? So we're just in the mode of consonants and vowels right now. Whenever a consonant in English occurs at the end of a syllable, you can think of it as being at rest. Very similar concept to what you see in Arabic. So I'll give you some examples here. I have given 3 different words with 3 different vowels and consonants, so let's go into it. This word is cat, C-A. So this C we're moving with the vowel A. But this T, the T at the very end, is not being moved. If it was being moved, let's assume there was an A at the end of this cat, it would be kata, C-A-T-A, kata. You just add the at the end. But because this T has no movement or has no vowel at the end, you can think of it as rest. You just say cat. Meaning you sound out the sound of the letter T, cat. You just say T or T at the end. You just say cat. But you don't say kata, katu, kati. Why? Because there is no vowel at the end. You just think of the T as at being rest. Similarly, this T is at rest. This consonant, the C, is being moved or has a movement has a direction, has an elongation because of this vowel. So you say C-U-K, and then a T, cut. The T is at rest. Think of the T as at being rest. If the T had an E or an I, so it would be C-U-T-E, cute, cutie, or Q-tip, Q-T-I. That the extra vowel would make the T move in some direction. But because there's no vowel after the T, this you can think of this T as being rest. Same thing here. Kit, K-I. The K is being moved by the I, but the T is at rest. Book. The K is at rest. Book. Book. Single syllable. This consonant is being moved by these two vowels, but the final consonant in this syllable, which is the K, is at rest. Bug. B is the consonant being moved by the U, but the G is at rest. Bug. Big. Dig. Dog. Dug. In this case, the G's are at rest, but the D is moving. The B is at rest. The B is moving, but the K is at rest. In book. In bug, the G is at rest, but the B is moving. In big, the G is at rest, but the B is moving with the I. You can think of it that way. I'll give you some examples of the sukoon in the Arabic language and how it is spelled out and pronounced out next. So let's get into that. This word is, first, this sukoon immediately tells us what? A, this is where the syllable ends, and therefore, because the syllable is ending, the previous letter with a movement on it, in this case, it's hamza fatha, hamza maftuha. We combine the two to create our syllable. So we'll do that next. So this is how you would spell this out. Hamza fatha ayn sukoon a. Ba dhamma bu. A'bu. Dal dhamma du. A'budu. Okay, so let's analyze what we learned in the previous slide and apply it to this word. What did we learn? Ayn does not have, this ayn does not have a movement on it. It does not have a fatha, dhamma, or a kasra. And it has a sukoon on it, denoting that this ayn is at rest. And because it is at rest, you should be combining it with a previous letter with either a fatha, dhamma, or a kasra on it. One of the movement, one of the vowels or the short vowels, which are fatha, dhamma, kasra, you combine it. So it's hamza fatha ayn sukoon a. Ba dhamma bu. A'bu. Dal dhamma du. A'budu. Notice this ayn has a sound, right? The sound of the letter ayn is a. But you're not moving it up. It does not have a fatha on it. You're not moving it down. It does not have a kasra below it. You're not moving it sideways because it does not have a dhamma on it. It's at rest. And because it's at rest, you're supposed to be combining it with the previous. So, hamza fatha ayn sukoon a. A. And the word is a'budu. Now let's imagine for a second that if this wasn't a sukoon, imagine for a second that ayn had a fatha on it. How would you say it? You would say hamza fatha a, ayn fatha a. So it would be a'abudu. But that's not the case here. It's not a'abudu. It's a'budu. This ayn is not moving. This ayn is staying at rest. This ayn is at sukoon. Hamza fatha ayn sukoon a. Ba dhamma bu. A'bu. Dal dhamma du. A'budu. Okay. Next we have ya dhamma yu. Waw fatha sin sukoon was. You was. واو كسراوي يوسوي سين ضماسو يوسوسو. Now let's combine and try to attempt to apply the knowledge we learned in the previous slide to this. Ya dhamma, you, moving sideways. That's clear enough. But this wow fatha and this seen, does this seen have any movement on it? No, it does not. It has a sukoon on it. Means the seen is at rest. Therefore, it should be combined with the wow fatha. So we say wow fatha seen sukoon was. So our first syllable is ya dhamma you. You. But our second syllable is wow fatha seen sukoon was. We say ya dhamma you. Wow fatha seen sukoon was. You was. Wow kasrawi. You was we. Seen dhamma su. You was we su. Right? Wow fatha seen sukoon makes a single syllable, and the syllable is was. The seen is not moving. It's not moving up with a fatha, it's not moving down with a kasra, it's not moving sideways with a dhamma. You can visualize it that way. It's not moving at all. It's at rest. So you combine it with this letter, has a movement on it, has a fatha on it. Was. Wow fatha seen sukoon was. So the word is yuwaswisu. Okay, now we're getting into slightly more complicated examples. We see that this lam has a sukoon on it. Therefore, this lam needs to be combined with a letter that has a movement. Right? That's what we learned in the previous slide. Whenever we see a sukoon, we combine it with a previous letter with a movement. So let's take a look at the sukoon. Oh, this is lam sukoon. Okay. What's the previous letter? Oh, this is a hamza. But wait. What's this, diacritic? Is this a movement? No, it is not. Why not? This is called hamzatul wasl. We'll go into detail of this later, and I believe I've covered some details of it in my previous videos. But hamzatul wasl gets cancelled. It does not have a movement on it when combined in Arabic. We will go into the details of it later, but for beginners, it's simple to denote. Keep looking back until you find a letter with a movement. So we moved one back. Hamza does not have a movement. It's hamzatul wasl. Does not have a movement. Moving below. This is a ya. Does it have a movement below it? Kind of looks like it, but no. This movement is actually below the fa. This movement is actually below the fa. So this is an example in which, because of this sukoon, you are skipping two letters. You're skipping this hamzatul wasl, and you're skipping this ya. This ya does not have any diacritic on it. It does not have the sukoon on it. It does not have a fatha on it. It does not have a dhamma on it. It does not have a kasra on it, below it. This fa has a kasra below it. So this lam sakina, lam sukoon, has to be combined with this fa kasra. And how would you do it? How is this spelled out? This is how it's spelled out. Fa kasra lam sukoon fil. Notice we skipped the ya because it has no diacritic on it, and we skipped the hamzatul wasl, went straight to the lam. Fa kasra lam sukoon fil. Ain dhamma'u fil'u. Qaf fatha qa fil'uqa. Dal kasra di fil'uqadi. the rules related to skipping and when a when a sakin letter or sukun letter combines with a movement, and sometimes you can skip because of the presence of a sukun. Sometimes you can see four letters, up to four letters, and I haven't seen more examples or more letters, but it might be true in the Quran. In this one, we're skipping two, but there are sometimes you skip four letters to combine a movement letter with a sakina letter with a harakat with a sakina letter. In this case, we're skipping two. We're skipping this ya, we're skipping this hamzatul wasl. This ya, by the way, does have an implied sukun on it, but that implied sukun is not written here. If this fa kasra and this ya was not, and if we were to pronounce it just independently and stop our breath, break our breath, then it would be pronounced like this: fa kasra ya sukun. But this ya has an implied sukun on it, and that implied sukun is not written for the reason so that people who don't know how Arabic is written and how Arabic is combined, etc., would know that this fa kasra is supposed to be combined with this lam sukun. This ya is to be skipped. That's why if they had put a sukun on it, it might become confusing. So there is no kasra on this ya. If we were to skip, not combine fil uqad, if we were to just say fa kasra ya sukun, then it would just be fi. Fa kasra ya sukun fi. But because the next word is al-uqad, al-uqadi, we combine. Non-Arabic speakers, just remember this. Look for the letter that has a kasra. Not a kasra, but a haraka. In this case, it's fa kasra. And then find the nearest letter with a sukun and combine the two. So that's how you make this syllable. This ya and this hamzatul wasl gets cancelled. So this is fa kasra lam sukun fil ain dhamma'u fil'u qaf fatha qa fil'uqa dal kasradi fil'uqadi. For this reason, that sometimes it gets 3, 4 letters that need to be skipped, 2, 3, 4 letters need to be skipped, I'm going to give you lots of examples. The Qaida Nuraniya has, I'm going to say 2.5, almost 3 pages dedicated just to different examples when it comes to sukun. For this lesson, I'm going to say there's going to be like 8 or 9 exercise videos. Like there's going to be a lot of exercise videos, a lot. Don't be discouraged by that. What I've been seeing in my YouTube trends is that people are watching the lesson videos, but they're skipping the exercise videos. Honestly, the exercise videos are kind of more important, I'm gonna say, than the lesson videos. Why do I say that? In the lesson videos, I impart knowledge. I tell you what the situation is. But the exercise videos are where you're going to perfect it. And without exercises, because reciting the Quran, remember the name of this channel is Learn to Recite the Quran. Because the name of this channel is Learn to Recite the Quran, you have to do the exercises if you're going to learn to recite. You can't skip those. For that reason, I keep recommending that the exercise you do with someone. You can watch them yourselves, but do the exercises with someone. Watch the video and go do that exercise with someone. That's how you will get better at it. Learning to recite the Quran is a motor skill. Motor skill meaning you have to move your tongue, you have to move your lungs, you have to move your chest, you have to move your nose, you have to make sounds from all these areas in order to learn to recite. Without following along in the exercise videos, you won't learn. Next we have, sorry for the slight tangent, but it's important. Next we have lam fatha mim sukun lam. That's it. has lam is the first consonant, its short vowel is the fatha, and the consonant, the second consonant, and the meme with a sukoon on it. Lam, fatha, meme, sukoon, lam. That's it. Next we have noon, fatha, sad, sukoon, naus. Ra, dhamma, ru, nasru. The sad has a sukoon, so it should be combined with the noon fatha. Noon fatha sad sukoon nas. Ra dhamma ru nasru. Okay. Moving on. Waw fatha wa. Ra fatha ra. Wa ra. Hamza fatha ya sukoon ay. Wa ra ay. Ta fatha ta. Wa ra ayta. Now, this is a special case. We learned this in, I don't remember, section 2, lesson 4, maybe lesson 5, I don't remember. But Hamza Fatha Ya Sukoon is an example of mad, and it's an example of, not mad tabi'i, I keep forgetting the name of this mad. I keep forgetting the name of this mad. Maddul Lin, Huruful Lin. This is an example of Maddul Lin, Huruful Lin. Hamza Fatha Ya Sukoon, Ay. We covered that in the lesson after Mad Tabi'i, which is Huruful Lin. We covered that. If you want, you can go into section 2, but I don't remember off the top of my head which lesson that was. I believe it might have been section 2, lesson 3 or 4, if I don't have it mixed up. Could have been might have been lesson 5 even. I don't remember. But check, it's 3, maybe section 2, lesson 3, section 2, lesson 4, lesson 5, in which we covered Huruful Lin. In Huruful Lin, we have a maftuha letter followed by a ya sukoon. This is an example of Huruful Lin. This is a ya sukoon. Today we're covering the details of the sukoon that we promised in that lesson that we're going to cover. Hamza fatha ya sukoon ay. Again, ya has a sukoon on it, so you don't move the ya. You just say e. That's the sound of the ya. But Hamza fatha and then you combine with the ya sukoon, you say ay. Wa ra'ay. Wa ra'ayta. I've been giving you a lot of examples from the from the 30th juz, not the third, but the 30th juz. Inshallah, if you've been following the exercise videos, if you've been following the PowerPoint, eventually there's going to be so many examples out of the 30th juz that when you open the 30th juz, you will have a very solid understanding of how to pronounce everything already because you've done it. So that completes our examples of sukoon. Next, we have the examples of Qalqalah. There are 5 special letters when it comes to the sukoon. What are those 5 special letters? We learned those and we tried to memorize those in the letter connections. We're going to do them again. The word with which, or the mnemonic with which you can remember them is qutub jad. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. The 5 letters that you see on your screen right here. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. Qutub jad. So when these 5 letters have a sukoon on them, qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal, whenever these 5 letters have a sukoon on them, you have to echo the sound or do qalqalah. I believe that's what the literal meaning of qalqalah is. I couldn't look up the literal meaning, so don't quote me, but I believe it means to echo. You must echo the sound. Sometimes some people call it bounce the sound. You can think of the sound as echoing. And what do I mean by that? if these letters, when they have a sukoon on it, if they're not echoed, it becomes difficult to distinguish the sound of the letter. It becomes difficult to tell what the sound of the letter is, or even to tell what the letter is, because the sound seems to stop if you don't do the echo. And I will tell you in just a second in the next video, if you don't do the echo, if you don't do the qalqalah versus if you do the qalqalah, what it will sound like. And you will see the difficulty that arises if you don't do qalqalah on these 5 letters. Qutub jad. If you don't do the qalqalah, if you don't do the echo, the sound seems to stop and it causes an annoyance. As in, you can't tell what was just said. The sound is difficult to tell apart. That is why the qalqalah is made. That is why this echo is made. So in the next slide, we're going to go into some examples of the sound, what the sound would become if you don't do the qalqalah. I'll give you some examples of what the sound would sound like if you don't do the qalqalah versus if you do. So just remember these 5 letters, qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. When they have a sukoon on it, you have to do the qalqalah. And what the qalqalah sound like and what it would sound like if you don't do the qalqalah, we'll go into the next slide. Let's do that. So doing versus not doing the qalqalah. On your screen, I have from Qaida Nuraniya. I actually literally copied and pasted. I took a screenshot of Qaida Nuraniya. I believe it's lesson 10. And these are letters in 3 collections. Maftuha letter, maksura letter, madbuma letter, followed by a sakin letter. Specifically, the letter that has a sukoon on it, or the sakin letter, is one of the 5 letters of qalqalah. So let's go to the first one. This is hamza fatha and then a ba sukoon. So first I'm going to pronounce out for you how it would sound if you sounded it correctly. There is going to be a slight bounce on the sound, and I want you to listen to how I pronounce the ba. This is hamza fatha ba sukoon ab. One more time. Hamza fatha ba sukoon ab. That ba has a slight echo. What is meant by the echo? That b, ab, ab, ab. Hamza fatha ba sukoon ab. That echo is what's called the qalqalah. But now I'm going to sound out for you the wrong way. And you will see the annoyance, you will see the difficulty. Almost difficult to even tell what letter I am sounding out if I don't do the qalqalah. So first I want you to hear the correct way. First I will do the correct way, and then I want you to hear the incorrect way of this. Hamza fatha ba sukoon ab. That is the correct way. But if I were to not do the qalqalah, it would sound like this. If I were to do it incorrectly, it would sound like this. Hamza fatha ba sukoon ab. Notice the sound almost completely stopped. It sounded like the ba just stopped, right? And because the sound just stopped, the articulation point just closed and the sound stopped, it's difficult for you to tell what I just said. Did I say a ba? Did I say a p? Did I say a ba? Did I say a ta? All I said was ab. But if I were to say it correctly, I would say it like this. Hamza fatha ba sukoon ab. That's correct. Now I'm going to say it incorrectly. Hamza fatha ba sukoon ab. Now because I closed the articulation point and because the sound stopped, it caused an annoyance and you can't tell what I just said. It's very difficult for you to sound it out. Very difficult for you to hear it. So I will do these 3 letters correctly first and then incorrectly, and I want you to hear the difference. And that will tell you what is meant by the qalqalah. That little echo, ab, that's that at the end, slight movement, slight bounce. Not a movement, it's a slight bounce, it's a slight echo. It's called a qalqalah. So first we'll do these three correctly, then we will do these three incorrectly, and I want you to hear the difference. Correctly first. Hamza fatha ba sukun ab. Hamza kasra ba sukun ib. Ab ib. Hamza dhamma ba sukun ub. Ab ib ub. Now I'm going to do it incorrectly. I'm not going to spell it out. I just want you to hear the incorrectness. Ab, ib, ub. Ab, ib, ub. Why is that incorrect? Because I closed the articulation point and the sound seems to stop. I didn't echo the sound. And because I didn't echo the sound, the problem became you can't, or it becomes difficult to sound or even hear out what the letter that was pronounced was. So this is, the correct way is ab, ib, ub. The slight echo you hear. The incorrect way is ab, ib, ub. Because I'm closing the articulation point and I'm not doing the echo, it's wrong. It's incorrect. But when I do it correctly, it's ab, ib, ub. This letter we will do one more time. This is the next is Hamza Fatha and the Jim Sukoon. This is the Jim Sukoon. So it's another one of the letters of Qalqalah. Correct way first. Hamza Fatha Jim Sukoon Aj. Hamza Kasra Jim Sukoon Ij. Aj Ij. Hamza Dhamma Jim Sukoon Uj. Aj Ij Uj. But if I were to pronounce it incorrectly, this is how it would sound. Ad, id, ud. Because I didn't bounce or I didn't echo the sound, it's almost impossible for you to tell that I even pronounced the jim. I didn't echo it. One more time. Correctly first and then incorrectly. Correct first. Aj, ij, uj. Now incorrect. Ad, id, ud. So correctly, aj, ij, uj. Incorrectly, ad, id, ud. That's that slight bounce, that differentiation on how I'm pronouncing the jim, that echo on the jim is called the Qalqalah. Next we have the daal sukun. Hamza fatha daal sukun ad. Hamza kasra daal sukun id. Ad id. Hamza dhamma daal sukun ud. Ad id ud. But if I were to pronounce it incorrectly and close my articulation point, not echo the sound, it would sound like this. If I do it incorrectly, if I don't do the Qalqalah. Ad, id, ud. Because I closed the articulation point, I didn't do the Qalqalah. It's difficult for you to tell even. Did I say the dal? Did I say the ba? What did I say? So, correctly first. Ad, id, ud. That is correct. Ad, id, ud. That is correct. Now I'm going to do incorrectly. Ad, id, ud. I hope you're starting to hear the difference. Finally, we have the ta. Hamza fatha ta sukun out. Hamza kasra ta sukun ito. Ato ito. Hamza dhamma ta sukun oto. Ato ito oto. But if I were to not do the Qalqalah, this is what it would sound like. At, it, ut. How difficult it is for you to hear the sound. It just stops. It causes an annoyance. That's why the Qalqalah is there. Qalqalah is the echo on these. So remember this. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. when those four letters have sukoon on it, bounce the sound, echo the sound, do qalqalah. That's what the qalqalah is. And this slide hopefully gave you details on how to sound it out and how you can hear the difference. I hope you heard the difference between the two. If you do it, versus if you don't do it, it causes an annoyance. We're going to do some example words now. Ya fatha ya, lam kasra dal sukoon, lid, ya lid. This word one more time. Ya fatha lam ya fatha ya. Sorry, there's no lam sukoon. Ya fatha ya, lam kasra dal sukoon, lid, ya lid. If I were to not do the qalqalah, it would become like this. It would become yalid. Now, if because I closed that articulation point and I did not echo the sound of the dal, it's very difficult for you to tell if you weren't reading it. Just hear it. Don't read. It would be very difficult for you to tell even what that letter was. But because I bounced or echoed the sound of the dal, it becomes yalid. Next we have the word ya fatha jim sukoon, yaj, ain fatha lam sukoon, al, yaj'al. So on the jim, we bounced the jim. We echoed the jim. If we didn't echo the jim, it would sound like this. Yad, al. That's incorrect. But if you were to do it correctly, the correct way is yaj'al, yaj'al, j, yaj, yaj'al. This lam and the other letters are not the huruf al-qalqalah or the letters of qalqalah. Therefore, the lam we don't bounce. We don't need to bounce it. We can tell immediately or exactly what that letter was that was pronounced. So this word is yaj'al. Next we have hamza fatha dal sukoon, ad, ra fatha alif saghira, ra, adra, kaf fatha ka, adraka. Dal, I echoed it. Next, I'm going to get into a slightly more complex, not slightly, it's actually a fairly complex example. And in the previous slide, I went into the detail of how the fatha letter is going to be combined with the sakin letter. Let's go into that. How do we spell this out? This is kaf fatha lam sukoon, kal, fa fatha fa, kalfa, ra fatha alif sukoon, ra, كالفرا, شين كسرة لام سكون, شل, كالفراشل, ميم فتحة با سكون, مب, كالفراش المب, ثا ضمة واو سكون, ثو, كالفراش المبثو, ثا كسرة, كالفراش المبثوث. This ba, the reason I kept it in the examples with the qalqalah is because of this ba sukoon, ba sakina. Because this ba has a sukoon on it, mim fatha ba sukoon mab, that ba should be bounced, echoed. But this is a good example of how letters are skipped because of the presence of the sukoon. This hamzatul wasl gets skipped and it combines with kaf fatha lam sukoon. Kal fara shin kasra lam sukoon, shil, kal farashil mabthu, kal farashil mabthuthi. So if you want, you can rewind the video and see how I differentiated and see how I did this. كالفراش المبثوث. Next we have تا فتحة جيم سكون تاج. را كسرى يا سكون ري تجري. This jim I echoed, and that's what the qalqalah is. تجري. Hopefully that's clear. I give you a lot of examples, but I'm going to say there's going to be like 8 or 9 exercise videos when it comes to this lesson. There's so many exercises because we're starting to get into, and I'll go into that next. Exercises. Lots of exercises. I will upload separate videos on all of these. Qaida Nuraniya lesson 10, and I want you to, after you watch the video, I want you to try to do this exercise with someone at your local masjid. Watch the video and then try to do this exercise with someone in your local masjid. Same with Qaida Nuraniya lesson 11. I want you to do this exercise with someone at your local masjid. Go find someone who knows how to recite the Quran and ask them to sit down with you and do this exercise with you. I will upload each exercise, by the way, every exercise, and its associated exercise pages, including PowerPoint, presentation links are in the description below, so you can get those. You can keep that as part of your notes. I will also create an exercise supplement video with lots of examples. That is going to be a lot of details. And I also want you to open the Quran and I want you to find what you learned today. There's going to be almost no line in the Quran that you're going to find that does not have the sukoon on it. So find a mushaf and open the Quran and find what you learned in the mushaf, what you learned today, and I will upload as part of the exercise video. Now what we have done is we have reached a critical juncture. The reason we have reached a critical juncture is because we've learned about the sukoon. And because we've learned about the sukoon, we are now starting to combine lots of consonants and syllables, and because of, basically you can think of the sukoon as a bridge. We learned a lot in my previous videos. Articulation, spelling it out, the different diacritics, etc. There has been a lot. But because we did the sukoon today, the sukoon is like a bridge amongst all of them. The sukoon is almost like it combines all of them. And the sukoon is what makes the flow of the Quran. Almost like point after point after point, how to combine, how to keep going, and how to pronounce out a verse in the Quran. This sukoon is at a very critical juncture. And because we have reached a critical juncture, there will be a lot of exercise videos. And I mean, I don't even know, I haven't planned them out, but I'm going to say like 6, maybe 7, or perhaps more exercise videos. Why? Because Qaida Nuraniya lesson 10 is going to require its own exercise video, but Qaida Nuraniya lesson 11 has almost 2.5, maybe 3 pages. And some of those examples are very long. And perhaps that's going to require like 3 or 4 exercise videos of its own. And then the exercise supplement that I'm going to provide you is going to require maybe 2 or 3 videos of its own. And then the Quran, what we opened in the Quran and what we learned today, because we're now starting to become proficient at combining letters, and there's going to be lots of stuff that you're going to know or start to know in the Quran. So that there might be multiple exercise video in that. So I'm looking at this right now, and it might be like 8 or 9 exercise videos. I don't know yet. But that's a good thing. We're starting to get into the Quran and the details and how everything is combined together and pronounced. So it's a good thing that we need to do so many exercise videos. But I encourage you not to skip those. There's going to be a lot of exercise videos, and they're going to have many parts to them. So that's what the exercises are going to be. Self-test. The self-test will place emphasis on the Qalqalah because the Qalqalah is a difficult concept to master, especially for beginners. And the self-test will combine, because there's going to be lots of words, and the self-test is going to be combine almost all of the previous lessons. And that's why this self-test is going to be lengthier than usual. I believe this self-test, if I created it, it's 160, 170 points almost. My typical self-test doesn't go over like 80 points, but this is like 160 or 170 points. That meaning that, oh, by the way, if you don't know, you can watch the introduction video to this channel. It'll tell you what the self-test is and how a self-test is organized and how you can go about testing your own knowledge with the self-test. You can watch that video if you want. So this self-test is going to be lengthier than usual. In conclusion, what did we learn today? We learned about the Sukoon, the diacritical mark called the Sukoon, and we learned about the Qalqalah. The Qalqalah is a tajweed concept. It's not a diacritical mark. But when the Sukoon is present on Qaf, Ta, Ba, Jim, Dal, then you have to do the Qalqalah on it or echo the sound. You can go back and watch this video again if you want details on the Sukoon. The next few videos will all be exercises. Meaning I'm going to say I don't even know yet, 8 or 9 exercise videos are coming up. So for I'm going to say almost 2 months, 3 months, all we're going to be doing is exercises. Hopefully you don't get bored, but it's really important that you do these exercises. But after we're done with all of that, in the next lesson, I'm going to say maybe a month, maybe 2 months down the line, the next lesson we're going to cover, and that lesson we're going to cover the shadda. And what that means, I've given you some introduction of the shadda and what it looks like. It looks like a fork-looking diacritic or a trident. It looks like that's what a shadda is. We will cover that in the next lesson. Perhaps after that, we will cover maddul lazim, and that will get us closer to the end of Qaida Nuraniya. All the lessons in Qaida Nuraniya we will have covered when we will have covered the shadda and maddul lazim. And after that, we will start going to section 3, which is going to be the tajweed concepts. So, Jazakallah for watching. I will see you next time in the exercise videos. Don't get discouraged. There's going to be a lot of exercise videos, but they're important. If you like this video, go ahead, leave me a like below. If you have any questions, comments, and concerns, write them below. If you like this channel, go ahead and subscribe. And please help me spread this knowledge by sharing this video with your friends and family so that they can benefit as well. I will see you next time in perhaps the exercise video. Jazakallah khair for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.